Nice to see you here. Thank you for attending my very first solo Summer Tech Bootcamp. Now, this is not actually my first bootcamp at Summer Tech, but I've always had helped or co-hosted with someone else, so it's my pleasure to be here today doing a solo thing. But today I'm going to ask for your help. Please, please make my life just a little bit easier and help me hire you. In this talk, we will cover my personal take on how recruiters or employers create a job posting, how I review my CVs, how we conduct interviews and go through the process, how do we choose a suitable candidate, and what is putting in an offer like, and pretty much anything in between. Again, from mostly a developer who's also involved in a recruitment activities perspective. First, though, there's a big disclaimer. This is my personal view on recruiting junior talent activities. It does not represent an organization's stance or practice whatsoever. So please don't take it as a golden rule. Use discretion and get peer reviewed, same as anything else. The thing is, this is actually based on my previous experience being involved in recruiting full-time, part-time, grad, and internship roles in the past. And so I'm just collating my previous activities and experience in this talk. A little bit about me. My name is Prae Songprasit, and I'm a UI front-end developer, and I have been so for 8 years now. I specialize in scalable UI, semantic HTML, accessibility for large-scale websites, and there's a sites like Tourism New Zealand or Xero's customer help portal called Xero Central. In my spare time, I do Japanese archery, as you see in this picture, and I'm still in the middle of learning how to do watercolors properly, just to keep my creativity up a little bit after long days of work. Usually, I don't actually like to have a whole slide about myself in a talk. You'd notice that I avoid it if you've seen my other talks before. But this actually serves a purpose. It is trying to drive home that employers and people on the recruiting side are also human. Actually, especially those on the recruiting and management roles are humans. Because who am I as an employer recruiting? Well, I'm recruiting future colleagues, people who I'll be spending 40 hours a week with for hopefully more than multiple years. And who are the managers managing and in charge of? They're in charge of people. They're in charge of making sure people are happy, that people who work with them are happy, and that, yes, they are also happy working with those people. As a candidate, when you're looking for a job, it is so easy to forget that people on the other side of the fence, the companies, the organizations you're applying to, are also humans. You sometimes just forget that and just focus on your needs of, gosh, I need to get a job, and I will do whatever it takes to get a job. And when you were unsuccessful, you wondered, what's wrong with me? You end up faulting yourself, but you don't realize that that's not the only reason why employer didn't choose you. There's a myriad of reasons why you might not be the best person for the company at that point in time, but it doesn't mean you would never be the right person for the job. It is all about timing and effort and a few other factors. In the end, though, the key to your success is knowing and understanding what employers need, checking what do you need. You can't just need a job. You're looking for a career. You're looking for steps that take you or to help you define what the rest of your life is going to be. So you need to ensure that both employers' need and your need are aligned. That is the key to a successful applicant and application. I'm a strong believer in empathy, and that is why I'm here to talk to you today. I'm here to tell you about how recruitment actually works from the employer side of things so that you see and can empathize with my point of view, the problems I'm experiencing, and reflect back upon how you, as a candidate or as a person who's going to become a future problem solver or developer, can help companies or your future employers succeed in hiring you. So here's an overview of what the recruitment process generally look like. First, there's preparation phase, there's sourcing, screening, selecting candidates, actually hiring them and putting an offer, and onboarding, and the process repeats. That's a typical recruitment life cycle. During phase one, this is where the organizations ask itself, why are we hiring junior talent or an intern at all? Why don't we hire an intermediate person or a senior person or contractor to come in and hit the ground running and solve our problems in 3 or 4 months? Well, depending on the business size, the stage or life cycle of that organization, or the organization's values, the answers can range anywhere from the questionable, oh, we're here to save costs, we're broke, hiring junior talent is cheap, or, well, actually, we're standing very we're expanding very rapidly, and there's just not enough talent in the market. Or your company is very focused on niche specialities like e-commerce systems or a CRM like Salesforce. And so there's just not enough talent in the market. You just need to train them up. The only way is to hire junior talent to train them. Or your company can have a lofty goal like, oh, we're here to foster future generation of coders and do good for New Zealand. Or if you're hiring intern, you could just simply trying to entice them into a future role with your company. Depending on the answers to these questions, this will inform the job posting's tones and the attitudes throughout the whole recruitment process. The next question the recruiter will ask is, which team is this junior talent going to be in? For organizations with multiple teams, sometimes team can volunteer themselves or actually request to have a junior talent in their team. That team's culture and the nature of work will naturally inform what you'll learn section of the job ad. And the last question that the recruiter would ask is, what does that team actually need? Why do they need junior talent or an intern? Well, there's many reasons why that might be the case. The team might just be full of disgruntled old people and it's just keen on fresh young energy, come out of university with starry-eyed and bushy tails. Or some of their team members might be at a growth phase of their career. They might be needing someone to practice mentoring on. And what could be a better kind of practice than practicing it on a junior talent? Or the team have had experience with junior talent before. In fact, they're actually a regular. They have a rotation spot right there in their team, and they're always getting new people. And so this is just a business as usual activity for them. They're used to this. They just need another one now. And if the team is requesting an intern, it might just be that they temporarily need help to get over a hump or a new feature and need to release it really quickly. Whatever the reasons, it will inform the what you do in the job ad section. So all these answers combined will result in, naturally, a job description or a job ad. Okay, so now I've got the job description. Where do I advertise the role of fine candidates? Well, since this is Tech Bootcamp, clearly Tech platform is going to be one of the ways that we source these junior talents. I can also look at just posting a job, traditional way, on Trade Me on Seek and wait for candidates to apply. Or I could be proactive and invest in going onto the campus career fairs and advertise the job. Or I could be getting an employee referral. They might know someone who's still in university and definitely is keen to start out with junior role. So rely on the referral of your employees. So now that we've looked at four ways to find candidates, how do we screen them? How do we go through this? Well, there are three main ways to screen the candidates, filter them down into a smaller list. The first way is being reactive. This is usually a strategy adopted by a more well-known companies. In a summer tech platform, this would probably be, banks, companies like Zero, TradeMe, PowerShop, and a few others who have sponsored the program before and have previously hired students from summer tech platform before. These are the company with a track record. They can just screen or select from the people who applied. They don't need to go and hunt down other candidates. They'll just look at this pool of many people who applied. So, what does this mean if you're a student? Well, it actually means that if you've never registered your interest or reached out, you would never be considered by these other companies because, well, they only looked at the pool of candidates who applied in time. The second strategy that companies can use is a proactive approach where they go and search on the platform. This is usually adopted by a slightly lesser known companies or companies who are quite new to the summer tech platform. So people don't quite know them yet, or they might not sure about applying at such new companies. They know and aware of this fact, so they actively reach out and shortlist candidates. Or they could adopt both strategies. That's a third strategy. This usually happens when a company has a dedicated resource to develop and hire junior talent. They would have personal and time and money to do that. But you won't find many on the sum of tech platform who do. So from the recruiter side, just helping teams screen through the many candidates. What are my actual goal in this phase? Well, realistically, the teams I'm helping or recruiting for can only really look at between 20 to 100 candidates per role. And so I want to screen right down to that 20 to 100 potential candidates and then send them over to these teams that I'm hiring for. But let's look at the reality of it. Last year, there were more than 2,000 completed candidate profiles on the platform. So, say as a recruiter, you've been given 1 week to narrow down this pool to 20 to 100 people. And let's say per week you work 35 hours. That's because, you'll have lunch breaks, toilet breaks, anything in between. And this is still pretty full on. Like expecting someone to sit at their desk for 35 hours is still quite a lot. And so, yes, you have 35 hours 1 week to narrow down 2,000 candidates down to these 20 to 100. That's approximately 57 candidates per hour that this person is going to sit through. That is a lot of people, and that is very tiring for the recruiter, but it has to be done. But what does that mean to students? Well, it it just means that if your portfolio or profile is incomplete, it's missing information, had lots of typos, doesn't make much sense, doesn't match a job posting at all, or you seems to be appearing in different areas, they'll just simply cut you off, not give you a chance because, well, there's so many other candidates to look at. So, what screening tools are at the recruiter's disposal here? Well, Samotech provides some filters, which covers, student status. Are they first year, second year, penultimate, last year, etc. So I can choose what suits my company best. Do I want someone who's already graduated or graduating so they can perhaps transition to a full-time role? I can then filter out, all right, I don't want to hire design students or business students right now. I just want to focus on people for developers role. Great. All these filters might help me filter out 40% of the candidates. That's 1,000 left to go through, or a little more than that. Next would be, all right, out of all the 60% candidates that are left for me to have a look at, which one of them actually completed their profile and actually put slight effort in? Again, This means empty or no effort profiles. You put nothing in, misspellings everywhere, no links to anything, no reference, no portfolio, very, badly typed up stuff. Clearly, with no effort. This is going to be a no-no. I'm going to totally cut them out really quickly. If you have portfolio or GitHub repo, great. This would help me inform, all right, I'm hiring a dev and I think this person probably knows how to do some dev work. Because again, the person doing the initial screening might not always the one from the team you're going to be working on. They might just be your, a normal human resource person who's just out there recruiting all sorts of roles for the company, admin, business, design, devs. So they only have a preliminary idea of what generally to look for and to screen out. All right, so I'm a recruiter again. And after a week of hard work, I have now narrowed down to 20 to 100 candidates that I could then put together and throw over the fence to the teams who want these junior talent to decide and narrow down to their list of preferred candidates. And that leads us to phase 4. So as a student or as a future candidate on some tech platform, by this point, you have probably applied for 10 companies, your maximum quota. You might have heard from some. You might still be waiting for a response. You might be waiting for a call for next step. And you're posting nervous Slack messages to each other, publicly on the Samotech Slack channel. I've seen those before. Those were interesting, but that's fine. Whatever you need to calm down or as your coping mechanism, do what you like. But while you're nervous and waiting for anywhere between 1 week to 1.5 months on the employer side, this is where shit gets real. This is the most resource heavy period of all the recruitment process because it's not just one or two recruiters filtering and screening out anymore. This is where teams who want people will need to get involved and really narrow down the students that might be more suitable for these technical roles. This is also pretty much the most intense period because usually from the employer's point of view, it's a very short and busy time. You're trying to fit in shortlisting candidates with a fine-tooth comb. You're trying to also perhaps fit in technical assessments in between, and then trying to do interviews and schedule them all in with multiple peoples and multiple types of groups within the company. It is very busy. It is tricky to schedule so many people in. So as a student, what you can do here is if the employer contacts you, respond quickly, be mindful of their time, and try to avoid rescheduling unless it's like exam time or something urgent. In that case, try to bring that up as soon as possible so they can actually help you reschedule. To drive the point home, this is what my schedule actually looked like at summer tech period last year. Yeah. So as you see here, I have about 4 or 5 hours of focus time booked out. That is a time that I could sit down and do my own work and code and not be on support mode or catch up or on recruiting activity and who knows what. And so I detest candidates who waste my time. Last year, one of the candidates were kind of playing on the phone during one of the meet and greets. And those who were here last year would remember how stressful last year's meet and greets were because it was moved online for the first time. And there were hundreds of students just waiting to get a chance to chat to a company, to talk to us. And this student who got into the queue early was just scrolling through while not looking, making eye contact with our employers and just, you know, being very dismissive. Well, naturally, they didn't get through the shortlist and we never contact them back. So, as a person from the team who would like to hire junior talent, I'm now in the shortlisting mode. I'm going to shortlist them so that I could decide who to send an assessment to and perhaps schedule an interview after the assessment, if my company even do assessments. By this point, each and every one of those 20 to 100 students are no longer a number. You're now a real human who would be closely scrutinized on paper and perhaps doing interview to figure out whether we could work together. As someone shortlisting candidates, I look for articulate profile, the kind of profile that clearly highlights your career aspiration and has good attitude. The problem with attitude, though, is that the attitudes can't be spelled out. You don't just say, "Oh, I love learning and working with people." Anyone can say that. Back it up with side projects or activities. Show us proof and examples that you exhibit those attributes. Next, I would, of course, again, return to the CV and resumes, but this is where I would take a closer look at things like personal statements, because again, it shows what kind of roles are you really interested in, what makes you tick, and perhaps, look at the links to your work. What you said in your profile and resume, does it match the nature of a role that my team wants to fill? Did you say you love UX, but you applied for a data science role and you did not provide any relevant explanation as to how those two interests relate to each other? It might just seem that you're desperate and you're just applying for any role that perhaps have less people applying. Have you done any works related to this? In that case, list it out. Provide us with the link, the portfolio. Give us the details as to who you worked with in order to achieve this. Now, this is optional, but when you're dealing and competing with 100 other students, having this really make you stand out. Having an easy to inspect portfolio. If you're applying for a web developer role, that would be, having a personal site, um, or at the minimum have some sort of GitHub repo or GitLab, whatever Git public tool that you have that you can host your code for us to inspect that, gives you a leg up. Or if you code in a language that can't be run on the web, then provide us with a clip of how your app or your tool worked and post it up in your portfolio. Provide a link to it, upload it somewhere. The thing is, those PDF CVs, you can provide links on them, like clickable links. And so use everything to make it as easy as possible for recruiters to actually go and inspect your work. If you know Git, that's a real bonus. I mean, usually Git is not taught in university and it's hard to teach at work to get you up to speed, but everyone uses it. And so by you knowing that, it also gives you a bit of a heads up compared to other candidates. If you then know how to deploy your work, great. It shows yet another skill that is desirable. We know you're resourceful enough to learn how to do that. You understand the web just enough to be able to present your work and publish it to the world. Now, when it comes to GitHub, all I want to see is just one really completed project. I don't need to see 1,000. If I come to a portfolio of 4 students who are in the same course, they might have 5 works from the same projects that they've been given, but that's all there is. In that case, how can I tell the difference between them? Now I'm forced to be in the position where I have to go in and download their code or to really look at line by line to see which one is a better coder. And that is not the position I want to be in. So have one project. That could be your portfolio site, really well coded, unique to you, or you might really take one of those uni projects up and like really make it yours, rename the site, explain it properly, utilize those README files, and really shows that you know what you're doing. I don't want a lot of projects, I just want one. But if you actually have other works that are deployable, then I'm not going to look at more than 3 pieces of work because no one's got time for that. The interesting thing is, last year, I wanted to give a candidate a chance, or some candidates a chance. Like, I've seen their work during Create Camp before. I know they've deployed the code. They just didn't provide me with a link to the deployed code. And just because I've met them before, I don't want to be using that as an excuse or lucky break for the student to get on top of 20 other students and I'm also reviewing someone else just because I happen to accidentally have met the person before. So if you didn't provide me with a link on your official sources, I'm not going to go and pursue it. Now, it goes without saying that all of the works will need to demonstrate genuine interest in this type of role. as I said before, that's where your personal statements highlight the things you want to move towards, the things you want to learn. For example, you said you love C sharp and you never mentioned HTML or CSS or JavaScript, yet you're applying for a front end web developer role, which use all of that and not C sharp. No one wants to be someone's backup role. By you doing that, it makes the companies and employers feel like, oh, they're not really looking for the kind of role I'm offering, but they're just applying because, I'm perhaps a good company and they just want any role, whatever, in order to get into my company. That's not the kind of person that I want in this role. I will want to give to someone else. All of them should also demonstrate your useful and transferable skill set. Were you a waitress in your past life? Fabulous. List out all your human skills. You've dealt with some colleagues, you help them train people, whatever. That's actually a real life skill that is very valued in a real workplace. Have you hosted events, organized functions? Tell me more. This demonstrates your organization skills. It also demonstrates your resourcefulness, which again make you a very desirable candidate. The bottom line is make yourself memorable because now that you have passed the initial screening phase, you land in this phase where everything you have written and published on the web and sent to us is being scrutinized. You have been given a chance to prove that you are desirable. Use it to an extent. Really dive home that. Okay, so from the employer side, at this point, me and my team have looked at 25 to 100 candidates. I'm tired. The difference is minute, but I finally managed to shortlist 6 to 10 candidates to move on to the next phase. Now, it so happens that my company happened to have the tradition of technical assessment. Not all companies have that. The thing is, technical assessment doesn't always happen. It's usually when recruitment is of a higher stake or the role is very, very competitive. Because, for example, last year, one of the teams that I know of have never had an intern or junior talent in their team before. So they were thinking, oh, if we hire junior talent, it might slow us down, it might reduce our productivity. So in order to prove that junior talent would actually benefit them in long term, I mean, we know of a lot of other benefits of having junior talent in the team. We've set the assessment so that it at least assesses the candidates know the basics of Git, HTML, and CSS. Or for some roles, we have had top 20 candidates who have, all of them have side projects. They all did extracurricular activities. They all seem to have very similar university experience, all very active, very well written CVs, etc., etc. Well, what can help me differentiate between them before the interview process? Well, that would be the technical assessment. There are a few types of technical assessments, three that I'm aware of. One is the online technical assessments, and that would be tools like HackerRank, Code Submit, and a few others. You can look it up. I personally hate online assessments, especially the timed pressure ones. Oh my God, like have to do like 15 questions in 1 hour. Unfortunately, though, it is the most efficient thing we have to filter through many candidates in one go. But knowing that, I personally don't put too much weight on the technical assessment unless I'm required to. But most of the time, I don't have to. But there's a few tips here in order to improve your chances or improve your score with online technical assessments. Tip one is a lot of these tools record your answers for the employers every time you hit run code. So instead of using pen and paper to write your formula, work out your details, and then, copy and paste your answer, type up your answer into the run code area, just test your code in that run area. Treat it like a math test. You know how math test doesn't just putting in your final answer, it wants you to show your thought process and you have arrived at this decision. Yeah, doing exactly the same thing, except on the computer. Tip two is a lot of these tests are free for candidates. So as someone looking for a job, you can go and practice on these platforms for free. Again, like math class or practicing maths. It's practice that makes perfect, and you get better and faster at it if you give it more time. This is how you would, get better at online assessment. The second type of technical assessment is a take-home assessment. Now, if given a take-home assessment, please read the instructions very, very carefully because often I would give out take-home assessments and I would get students who would just fill out their answers in a hurry and don't submit it in the way that shows their capacity fully or in the way that we actually requested. And as a coder, you kind of need to be detail oriented. We kind of want you to read instructions and know how to find answers to your problems. And so by you ignoring some of these instructions, it doesn't reflect very well on you as a candidate or as a future worker. And tip from me is also go above and beyond and show your prowess. For example, the employer might actually email you the question to solve and ask, please send these files to us and we'll assess you from there. Well, if you already know Git, instead of submitting or attaching a zipped folder of the project, do it all on Git. Show small incremental commits. Even better, try to deploy it. Send the employee the link to the GitHub code base so they can inspect your code and the link to the deployed site so that they can admire what it looks like if it's a web project. Use the README file to your advantage. Often starter projects or any take-home project really, you can add your own readme.md file. And this is a space for you to explain your choice and decision. It is not to write essays about what you do. It is to clarify if there were multiple ways to solve this problem or to code up this layout, you have to be explaining, well, I've chose this one because it's more performant, or maybe I choose this one because of better support. For whatever reason, this is where you can explain your details and your decision. Use it to your advantage. The third type of technical assessment is the whiteboarding. Actually, usually this will happen during the interview. This is where an interviewer will ask you a question or to solve a problem, and you might or might not have a whiteboard, but you would then walk them through or talk them through your thought process of how you approach solving that question. Now, sometimes these questions are very open-ended. It just asks you to solve something that's seemingly simple, like, all right, go and refactor this code. But the employers were looking for more. It's looking at how you're not just solving the problem, you're stepping back and looking at, all right, what could contribute to this problem? And who else do I need to pull in into my decision making process to make this the best possible decision? The employers almost expect you to ask clarifying questions and try to gather more data about the actual problem itself before just spouting out the answers. Because anyone could be just answering any questions, but not everyone asked the reason why that was a problem to start with. So look at it that way. This would really make you shine during this kind of technical assessment. All right. So as an employer, I've sent technical assessment to students. I have also shortlisted them for interviews, and now I'm ready to go. I'm going to have to interview them. There's three main ways to interview, at least when people are interacting with the Samuel Tech platform. The first way is through the classic Samuel Tech speed interview. This is a 10 minutes long speed interview, which is very intense. It is less time consuming for the employers, but unfortunately, it's stressful for both students and employers. We're both nervous. For employers, it'd be like, oh man, what kind of questions can we fairly ask a student in 10 minutes? What can we ask that would let them shine and let them show us the best of them? That's really tricky to do in 10 minutes. So, what employers hope the students to be able to do is to be able to articulate and give concise but complete answers to their questions. The employers also look at how well the candidate react to this very intense situation and how well they present themselves. Within 10 minutes, you can sometimes figure out what does a candidate value. Usually when you ask that kind of questions, the first answer the candidate give you would usually be the truth because it's such short notice and you're under such pressure. So the first thing that comes to your mind would usually be things that are usually in your head, unless the candidate has practiced that question before. You can also figure out their working style. Have they worked in a group before, or do they work in a group regularly? How they like as a collaborator. And the most importantly, as an employer, I'd want to know why is the candidate even interested in the role that I posted up? Is it because they just want any role? They want to be with this company, so they'll just apply for anything. They don't even care what the role does. They just want to be a part of this company. Or are they genuinely interested? Is it a part of their future career that they would like to pursue or at least test out as an intern? Then you have another type of interview, which is actually the classic version in the real job market. It's a full interview. It's often used for roles that would likely turn into a full-time role, or it's organization's first junior hire. And so they're a bit nervous and they just want a little bit more context and want to know more about the students. Generally, it's 1 or 1.5 hours long. And at this point, you've heard of both interview types. For both of them, the tip for me is also prepare questions to ask employers about the company, about the team, about the nature of work. If the job description weren't clear, this really shows that you're interested in the role and you actually want to work with that team. I mean, interview is a two-way thing. For employers, it's to find out whether students would work well in this role. And for students, it would be, will they be happy in this company? Or is this the kind of place they want to start out their career? The last type of interview, questionably interview, is the grad day and open day. What usually happens in these days is employers would grab a whole bunch of candidates who they're filtered down now, and they will ask them to do a whole bunch of activities and compare them with each other. Hunger Games style, but less bloody, no deaths. The employers will be looking at the candidates' flexibility. They'll assess their ability to work as a team with strangers or with other candidates who are competing for the same roles. They'll also observe the reactions and attitudes of those candidates. So actually, this is a very comprehensive way of, I guess, interviewing a candidate. But it does take a whole day. It does take a lot of resources. So not everyone does it. All right. So as a team, I have checked out all the possible details I can get about a candidate. Looked at their interview details, looked at their site again, looked at their portfolio again, looked at CV, reviewing to death. And so I have to decide, who am I going to give this offer to? Let's say I have a candidate with stellar performance in technical assessment, but they're not great during interview phase. They were very recluse. They did not look like they will ask the questions if they have problems during the work time. In that case, I would almost dismiss the technical assessment and just choose the one who have shown a better adaptability and collaboration skills and shows ability to learn. Because at this point, I'm hiring a teammate. So I really, really hate time wasters. I'm hiring someone who, again, I'll be spending 40 hours or more a week with and trying to achieve some goal or objective together. Everyone in this process is really busy. I mean, I've shown you the example of a calendar just then. We need to know if this junior person could be left alone for a bit and still learn. No, we're not looking for someone who will throw into the deep end and they'll learn by themselves. We're looking for someone who we can provide minimal guidelines and mentor on an occasional basis, and they'll learn how to grow themselves and ask questions when it's right for them. We're also looking for an empathetic communicator. Are they likely to respectfully and pragmatically raise issues or ask for help? Or needing an empathetic communicator is especially important in a multicultural team where candidates will be working with people with different communication styles. Some people will be very open, very direct, classic European style, um, don't mince words, or they could be very flowery, like New Zealand American kind of style. Um, so can the candidates be empathetic enough to understand the needs of other people in the team and adopt to that? We're also checking if they're an effective collaborator because of the exact same reason. If you're empathetic and you are self-driven, you would most likely be a good collaborator who knows how to gel people in the team together. And then, strangely and importantly, will this junior person enrich the team's culture? No, I do not mean the detestable team fit. When hiring people who are the same as us, will create a very monotonous culture. It's the very thing which resulted in discrimination and the lack of diversity that we found today. The lack of Maori and Pacifica whānau in our workplaces, the lack of openly disabled individuals in our communities. So no, I am not asking for team fit, people who would fit into the mold of the rest of the team. We're looking for someone who could help shift the scale and the point of view just a little bit in a respectful way and not too disruptive. Another example of just enriching team culture is if I know this team is full of introverts, I'd be very wary of adding yet another introverted person to this team. I'm not saying introvert is a bad thing, it's just introverts with other introverts. It's just going to be full of people who don't speak their minds. I would also be wary of putting an extreme extrovert into the team because, well, instead of having a healthy tension between styles that would force us out in the open and make us work together more or make us try to openly understand each other more, it will end up being a headbutting contest of people who won't speak to each other or people who will speak to each other but in an aggressive manner. We want to create healthy tensions to elevate the team, to make the team better, not to make the team unproductive and stop working with each other. Next might be a strange thing to you all, but from an employer side, we also ask, what can the team offer to the candidate? If the candidate already knows all the tech stacks in the team, wouldn't this be a waste of the candidate's time? Wouldn't it be better for them to be applying for another role? Wouldn't it be better if other candidates would benefit more from being in our team and learning these skills? Then we're also asking, is the candidate likely to have a good time in our team? Will they feel welcomed and at home? Can we make them feel welcomed and at home? And hopefully give them a good impression of the company. Because an internship, in essence, is a form of a PR activity, and it's an investment in the future reputation of an organization. The students who had a good internship with the company would most likely either want to come back or refer their friends. So, at this point, we have now used all these factors to rank our top most preferred candidates, 3 to 6, to give an offer to. Now, with Summertech, it's quite unique. The actual hiring means that as employer, I would then rank candidates into my top preferred 1 to whatever number, and the very first top candidate would then get an offer via Summertech. Then, if the offer is refused or not accepted in 24 hours, the second ranking gets it. And if the second ranking didn't want it, the next person gets it. And if no one in our shortlist accepts, we as an employer pretty much have to start over, comb through those profile again, reach out to them manually. That's a lot of work and it's a lot of risk for us. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. But what you need to know is, if you're one of the shortlisted candidates on the offer list, well done to you, because it means you've impressed the company enough to make it there in the shortlist out of 2,000 plus students that those companies might have been looking at. And from an employer's perspective, if I listed out 6 to 10 candidates, frankly, I'll be happy with any of those top candidates. But since I have one role or limited number of roles, I have to choose. I have to choose who would I prefer to get that role more than the other. chances are by this point there are very minute differences between you. It might be circumstances, might be limited time, but we just couldn't get a clear sense that you are differently a more preferred candidate than the other, or that you'd better enrich the team's culture than other candidates. At this point, the difference might be so minute we couldn't tell. And so this is where the details of your work and all of our interactions combined matter. It sets you apart. All your efforts matter at this point. So for closing thoughts, I have spent the past 45 minutes telling you my experience from an employer's perspective, an employer's hiring goals when hiring junior talent, and explain to you the problems I've encountered when trying to review and filter through candidates. Now, I want you to go forth and help me solve my problems. Pour your efforts into your CV, your profile, your portfolio pieces. Apply your learnings from all these boot camps. Be resourceful. Ask to be peer reviewed and take that chance to stand out in as many ways as you can, of course, in a positive way. Make it so easy for me as an employer to choose you that there's no longer a close call. It is no longer the matter of choosing between you and number one, that you were clear first. You'll be top of mind when I interacted with you. So please help me hire you. Please. Thanks for listening or for watching this talk. If you have any questions, please hop onto the Summer of Tech 2021 Slack. I can answer your questions on hashtag code or hashtag bootcamp, or just tweet at me at lack of colors, and I'll see you at one of the other Summer of Tech events. Have a good night.